3.9 is suggesting that if you had cash in a cash ISA, you'd have to pay either 20%, 40% your tax rate. This right here is the Treasury's consultation paper on UK ISAs. Now, this has been used to lay the foundations to the changes that we're going to see to the ISA regime coming this Saturday, because the tax year ends on Friday. So what I'm going to do in this video is talk you through the changes that we know are coming, but also highlight some things that are buried in this consultation, which for me, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, are a little concerning because they've kind of gone underneath the radar. I'm also going to give you a few things to consider as well. So you definitely want to stick to the end. Let's get cracking with the most important thing first, what's changing. Just to set the scene, these changes are going to be applicable across all of the 5 types of ISAs that we have. So currently we have a cash ISA, stocks and shares ISA, lifetime ISA, junior ISA, and an innovative finance ISA, applicable across all 5. The first change that they're making, which is pretty good, is your ability to contribute to multiple ISAs of the same type in the same year. And if you ask me, this is something that has definitely been welcome and is long overdue. You know, how it's worked up until now is that if you had a cash ISA, for example, with Nationwide, and the rate on that account wasn't as good as, say, a Halifax, especially with interest rates having increased right now, you would have to pick between the two. So you would either have to move your Nationwide ISA to Halifax in order to be able to take advantage of the new rate, or just stay where you are. This little tweak to the rules will mean that you'll be able to have a cash ISA with Nationwide and Halifax, but ultimately making sure that you stay within the limit that you have within your ISAs. And this is the second thing that is going to come into force that is changing, and that is the fact that the ISA allowance is actually going to increase. So it's been frozen at £20,000 in the last statement by Jeremy Hunt. However, he did announce the British ISA, which is essentially an additional £5,000, which is only applicable, you can only use it in a stocks and shares ISA invested specifically in UK companies. So the FTSE 100, FTSE 250, so on and so forth. That's going to start coming into force on Saturday. That, I would say, is pretty welcome. However, I think people are they lack confidence in the UK economy right now. And I think with everything that's been happening, we're in a recession right now. There are good reasons for that. I did a podcast specifically on the British ISA. I'll link it somewhere up here so you can go and check it out for yourself. Allowing partial transfers between providers. Now, this right here is going to be a big one, particularly for people who may have, say, stocks and shares ISAs with the likes of Trading 212, where they hold them all in individual stocks, and they want a little bit of exposure for that money that they've contributed into the ISA with someone like Vanguard, for example, in an ETF, maybe something like the VUSA. Previously, what would have happened is you would have to literally transfer all of your holding, the total amount that you had in Trading 212, over to Vanguard. With this, you can do a partial transfer, meaning you can just transfer a proportion of what you have in the Trading 212 into Vanguard to get a little bit more diversification in an example where you might be looking to access ETFs in opposed to individual stocks exclusively. No need to reapply for existing ISAs each tax year. Now, under the current rules, if you opened a Nationwide ISA back in 2020, and you had a gap where you didn't contribute to it, if you wanted to contribute it in this current tax year, you'd have to reapply, do a fresh application to pay money into that account. So what this is going to do is this is going to basically get rid of that need for reapplication where you might have had a gap, for example, where you didn't pay in to your ISA during a particular tax year. This one's a big one because they are going to allow certain fractional shares to be ISA eligible. Now, this is something that I spoke about extensively on the channel, and we got quite a bit of coverage on the fact that fractional shares, according to the rules, isn't necessarily covered or allowable in an ISA wrapper. This is the compromise that they're coming to. But there's still a lot of uncertainty around what certain means. What does that wording actually mean? And is it going to be broad enough? What are the consequences going to be if it isn't broad enough? And I guess some are excluded and people hold them in their ISAs. What's going to happen? So they're working with providers right now. This is definitely one to keep an eye on. All right, those were the changes. But before I get into the bit in the consultation that I think is worthwhile highlighting, because I can't believe it's actually in there in print, and I'm going to read it to you. I just want to talk about 3 things that I think are important for the next few days, because we do have 3 days until the tax year comes to an end. So the first one is this: think about your household allowance, okay? If you're living at home with a partner, then it essentially means that you both have an ISA allowance that you can fully utilize, up to £40,000. Now, I know that that's a lot of money. Not everyone's got that lying around. But the point here is to try and make sure that you're being as efficient as possible in terms of, if you have money in a current account at the moment that isn't currently wrapped into an ISA account, it might be worthwhile considering, right, how do I get some of that money out from that account over into an ISA, just to ensure that you've got it tax protected. And now there are some pretty decent rates on cash ISAs as well. So it's definitely something that is worthwhile considering. The second thing is this: pick the right ISA and prioritize the right ISA as well. So if you're a first-time buyer, clearly a lifetime ISA is where you should be going first, because that money from the government, that £1,000 additional bonus that you're going to get from the government, is an absolute no-brainer. It's going to help you achieve some life goals a bit later on. If you're an investor trying to build wealth for the future, then obviously stocks and shares ISA is important. If you're a parent and you have kids and you've not maxed out the current £9,000 junior ISA allowance, make sure that you try and get as much of it as you possibly can into the account. So pick the right ISA. And my final tip on this is max as much as you can. Yes, £20,000 is a lot of money. There is no doubt about that. A lot of people won't have £20,000 that they can max out. But unfortunately with ISAs, if you don't max out or use your allowance, you're going to lose it. And I think that if you are able to use £2,000, £3,000 of your ISA allowance, it's better than using nothing at all, because you're not going to be able to get back the allowances that you did not use. So max out as much as you can. Now that that is out of the way, let's actually get into the bit in the consultation which started to ring alarm bells for me. Now, I'm going to link this down below. It's on page 11, all right? Page 11, or you can just Google this and go search for this for yourself. It's under the heading Cash Holding Rules. There are 2 clauses, 3.8, 3.9. I'm going to read you both. Now, you tell me what you think. Here's clause 3.8. To meet the policy objectives of the UK ISA, the government suggests that cash holding rules should be included. These rules should disincentivize investors from holding cash in the UK ISA other than for purposes of investing. 3.9. Check this out. Examples include applying the basic or other rate tax to interest on cash held within the UK ISA, not allowing interest to be paid on cash in a UK ISA, or having a de minimis amount of cash held in a UK ISA. I'm not making that up, by the way. That is literally in print. You can go download this right now and go and have a look at it. Now, this obviously is, I think they've dropped it, but it is telling, to say the least, to know that this is something that they actually considered, because it would betray the legacy of ISAs. And what the government knows is that there is a lot of money in ISAs right now. And I doubt that even if they did introduce this, that they would retrospectively or retroactively enforce this. But 3.9 is suggesting that if you had cash in a cash ISA, you'd have to pay either 20%, 40%, your tax rate on the money that you held in there, effectively destroying the whole purpose of an ISA, or not allowing interest to be paid on cash in a UK ISA, which begs the question, what would you do it for? What would you hold a cash ISA for? What would you hold a UK ISA for if you couldn't hold it in cash? People hold emergency funds in their ISAs. People hold their house deposits in their ISAs. So if it's not invested, which is upping the risk for normal people, especially if you haven't got the timeline, by the way, you've only got a 5-year plus timeline, then you shouldn't be investing. You should be in a cash ISA. This puts this in detriment, or at least having a de minimis amount of cash held in a UK ISA, which is being very prescriptive of you can only hold X amount in a cash ISA, which people will say, and look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I get where people come from when you read stuff like this in black and white, that the government is trying to control what you do. If they had a de minimis amount of cash that could be held in a UK ISA, imagine you're being told where you send your money, what you can do with your money. Imagine having a healthy ISA portfolio and the minimum that you can hold in cash was something like 10% or 5% or 3%. I mean, how much of a penalty is that? And if you break it, by the way, it's a tax grab. I mean, this is, like I said, it's in paper. I would love to know what you think of this. I really, really would. And this is where I'm going to kind of sign off on this video. First and foremost, a few questions. Do you like the changes? I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Number two, can you believe that it's included? And do you think that maybe in a 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years time, considering this is actually in the consultation, that we might see wholesale change to the ISA wrappers and the ISAs that we know today? And it doesn't matter whether it's a particular political party. This right here, my God, that will piss people off. I mean, it would piss me off. It would piss everyone off. But we have to be mindful. You know, in the United Kingdom, not all of us have this ISA allowances. This is something that is privileged to English people. Is this something that we can expect to change in years to come? I'd love to know your thoughts on this. But that right there, reading it, I was just like, wow. Anyway, catch you later on.